Once again, we assemble to bear witness to my masochistic streak as I regurgitate the leavings remaining in my brain after watching that towering triumph of modern Hollywood. Yes, I'm laying it on a bit thick, but I don't want you all depressed right off the bat as I start going through my spoiler review of The Rings of Power from Amazon Prime. Before I get into that, I would like to take a moment and talk to Jeff Bezos and the board of directors of Amazon. Jeff, baby, are you paying attention? Whoever is really in charge of those two sophomores you hired to front this mess is flushing your streaming service down the drain with this billion-dollar boondoggle. It has two redeeming features, one of which comes as a complete shock to me, and those clowns have them on screen for a total of about 10 minutes in the first 4 episodes. Do you and your board a favor and go hire Disparu or Nerdrotic or George the Giant Slayer or one of a dozen other YouTubers who could tell you exactly where those idiots have stepped in it and how to fix it. If you are feeling loose in the wallet and want to spend more, talk to the Critical Drinker. As I think I mentioned in the episode 4 review of House of the Dragon, Rings of Power is looking like it will limp into Season 2, and I would not be surprised if it has lost over half of its viewers by the end of this season. Now, on to the review. And this might be a long one. I wound up with 2 pages of notes on this episode despite nothing worth seeing happening. And in case you missed it, this has tons of spoilers, though how I can spoil something this bad is beyond me. We open with Tarmiriel having a dream. It is obvious it was a dream from the second it started, so no real surprise there. Numenor is not scheduled to be destroyed this season, so I'm not sure why we were treated to a bad disaster CGI from the early 2000s. Actually, I'm probably being discourteous to early 2000s CGI. As a matter of fact, the time compression in this show is shown yet again to have been a bad idea in the manner that they are planning to do it. Numenor is destroyed roughly 1800 years after the Rings of Power are forged, and about 1700 years after the One Ring is forged. I know the clowns running this show claim they compress time to save them from hiring new actors every season or less, but the writers are not talented enough to compress the time scale and make it seem logical. Especially since none of that is supposed to happen this season, according to leaked scripts funneled to people willing to challenge Amazon's narrative about this show. Then we have Pharazôn, who is supposed to be king and married to Muriel, but apparently is neither, walking through the bazaar, politicking. His son, Kamen, is with him, and neither of them are any more likable now that they are getting screen time. Pharazôn is doing a bad weasel impersonation. The actor needs to call up Rhys Ifans from House of the Dragon for some lessons. His son I will talk about later because his part in this scene is brief. As Pharazôn is going through the market, one of the brawling guildsmen that fought with not Aragorn last episode is trying to stir up anti-elf sentiment in the square nearby. Mind you, there's one elf on the entire island. Anyone who has read about Tolkien and his writing philosophy knows that he hated allegory. For those who don't know, allegory is a story that has a hidden meaning meant to be conveyed to the audience, usually moral or political in nature. The writers could not have been more ham-handed with their allegory in this scene. It is basically attempting to portray modern immigration policy debates in the West in such a simplistic way that it amazes at the sheer level of imbecility they managed. They went full retard on this scene. Anyway, Pharazôn comes in and quiets the crowd with weasel words and free drinks. Kamen is shown trying to pick up Elendil's daughter, who is watching the speech at the edge of the crowd. She takes off when somebody calls her, leaving him watching her walk away. It is at this point we get bitch-faced for the first time. The ever-so-pleasant, intelligent, and polite millennial-old elf, Galadriel, is shown demanding things of the Queen again. I'm still trying to figure out what the showrunners and writers are going for with her. She is the most unlikable character I have seen on the big or small screen in a long time, and Brie Larson is out there playing Captain Marvel. Nobody as old as Galadriel would behave this way. I don't care how arrogant they are. She is still supposed to be intelligent, and there was zero intelligence being displayed in this scene. And because not Aragorn was still in a dungeon and not available to smooth things over, Muriel ordered her to join him. Here's where I need to make a correction from last week's video. I called Elendil's son Anarion, but it actually was Isildur. I must have zoned out when they were saying his name or something. Anyway, Isildur is going through his latest test to join the Sea Guard. He zones out, staring at the sun and hearing voices before deciding to purposely fail his test by letting a line slip. Two of his buddies catch it, and the captain overseeing the training calls Isildur on the carpet, kicking him and his two buddies out of the Sea Guard. Isildur, I understand. You do not want daydreamers on your crew on a sailing ship. That is a good way to get people killed. What I don't understand is the dismissal of his two buddies. The only thing I could come up with was manufactured drama and having his friends available to join him in whatever he eventually does. It's lazy writing, and it was poorly acted to boot. Last episode, Arondir was being dumb as a captive of the orcs. This week, we actually get to see the elf that is leading the orcs, and they have a conversation that was mostly pointless with said retarded Arondir. The elf, Adar, then lets him go with a message for the people of the human village who fled with Arondir's would-be girlfriend if they could ever find some on-screen chemistry that is believable. Then the scene ends without us hearing what the message is or seeing him leave. The people he will be delivering the message to are in the elven fort, and they're running out of food. The girlfriend and her son are arguing with some of the men who are not accepting her authority, and we have another insertion of allegory into the episode. Quite frankly, I think the reason the show sucks so bad is the whole thing is supposed to be an allegory, but the writers are so lacking in talent that the message only pops up when they hit us over the head with it, which is often in this episode. Anyway, Mom puts the men in their place, and then Son slips out to go back to the abandoned village to get food like he suggested, but Mom nixed. He brings the sword shard he has been hiding, and I'm beginning to wonder who his dad is. Why was the sword left in the cellar of a farmer? And if the kid is supposed to be the Witch King of Angmar or one of the others in Nazgul. If so, the writers should all be taken out, and I'm going to keep that particular fantasy to myself. Moving on. As the kid and the friend he conned into coming with him to forage in the village are about to leave said village, the stupid kid decides to go into the tavern to see if there's any food in there. Of course, as he's in there, the door of the tavern swings shut, just as a coincidental cloud covers the sun. His friend takes the wheelbarrow they had the food in and decamps, at speed. The kid in the tavern takes out the sword to fight off the orc everyone and their brother knew was in the tavern as soon as the kid stopped to go back. He stabs himself with the hilt, which makes the sword grow from drinking his blood, allowing him to fight off the orc and escape. The orc is joined outside by friends of his own, and they search for the kid. Meanwhile, the kid is in the well making enough noise that an orc should have heard him long before it did. He hides under the water, and the orc moves on with the search. The next sequence is one that brought about a half page of notes for about 2 minutes of runtime. Elrond is talking with Celebrimbor while the elfsmith is watching his tower forge being built by dwarves. Some time has obviously passed since the last episode, but the writers are so clumsy with showing it, this is our first hint in the show that it is so. Then again, the stuff going on in Numenor is not showing much time at all has passed, so who knows? Anyway, every time Celebrimbor is on screen, he makes me ask myself, what the hell are they going for with him? He is the least elf-looking character in a whole show of elves not looking or acting like immortal beings who have lived thousands of years. Elrond in this scene is also a wrong note. He looked like the showrunners plunked him from a boy band, rolled him through a drape shop, and sent him to Paul Mitchell's before throwing him into what is supposed to be a Lord of the Rings show. The two of them talk about how they think Durin is hiding something from them, and Elrond is sent to talk to him in Moria. But he can't find him. Oh, And the show makes it look like Moria is just down the street from Celebrimbor's place, because there is no transition or time awareness in how the scenes just merge. He is in Durin and Disa's house, and she is covering for her husband. It struck me that Disa and Durin are easily the most likable characters in this entire show, which shocks me. Sophia Nomvet, who plays Disa, did everything in her power to make herself unlikable in the media run-up to this series premiere. So I find it funny that she is one of the best things about a show where you literally have to look for things to compliment. And I mean look hard. Durin is also pretty good, and his scenes with Elrond in this episode almost make Elrond tolerable. Both his and Disa's accents have also leveled out, especially Disa's. In the first episode with her accent was all over the British Isles. Durin's secret is found out by Elrond, but he promises to keep it to himself. Then there is a cave-in, and they both try to help the miners dig out from the mithril mine they were trying to work. And the scene jumps again. If you recall earlier, I said Pharazôn's son Keeman was perving on Elendil's daughter Arianne. Well, it gets even more pervy when he just happens to run into her again. He offers to help her in her chores at the guild if she goes to dinner with him. This is another bad character. He gives off creepy Starkery vibes, he has bad dialogue, and he is not very well acted. Unless, of course, what they were going for was somebody off the sex offender registry who happens to be on the spectrum as well. Then we might have a bullseye. After watching Cayman making moves on Arianne, we are back in jail with Galadriel and not Aragorn. And this scene just further emphasizes how nerfed they have made Galadriel by trying to make her into Xena warrior princess. She is a powerful sorceress and has wisdom beyond mortal ken, and yet there she is, in jail. Whatever, Amazon. Whatever. Galadriel actually shuts the hell up long enough for not Aragorn to hit her with a clue-by-four. She promptly escapes when Pharazôn comes to tell her she is being sent back to the elves. He is then told where she is going by the ever-so-faithful not Aragorn. Which is when they cut away to Isildur, of course. The editing on this show can also join the list of things that need a complete overhaul. He's having dinner and his sister floats in after having her own dinner with the perv. He admits he got kicked out of the Sea Guard and got his friends kicked out with him. Then we jump again, without completing the last scene, to Galadriel breaking into the deposed king's bedchamber. Now, the king is not the one who should be king from the books at this time, but he is the king that was Muriel's father before Pharazôn usurped Muriel's claim and married her at the king's death. I'm still not sure what the hell Pharazôn is to them. I'm thinking he's actually still a cousin, and he will probably wind up straight up usurping the throne later on in time to help destroy Numenor, without getting into any House of the Dragon Targaryen shenanigans. The king is old and quite beyond being able to rule, even if he had not been deposed by the people before the series storyline starts. It is a stupid storyline, so I will move on. Muriel is sitting on the king's bed and confronts Galadriel with the prophecy a Palantir, or a seeing stone, showed the king and then Muriel, once she ascended the throne. Galadriel sees it herself and tries to argue Muriel around to doing what she wants her to do, namely giving her an army to fight Sauron. Muriel is not very well written, and the more she is on screen, the more I wonder why they are wasting Cynthia Dye Robson like this. Putting both her and Galadriel on screen at the same time is also a mistake. Galadriel is bad enough by herself, but this Muriel just compounds the misery for the audience. It is about this time that Mom realizes Kid was missing sometime after dark. His friend turns up with a wheelbarrow of food, which is all anyone else cares about. They flick over to him climbing out of the well in the darkness, and next comes the most idiotic run from orcs looking for me scene imaginable. Orcs are not this retarded, but the kid is. He gets caught, of course, and just as predictably saved by Arondir. They haul ass out of there with the small legion of orcs on their tail as they run through a forest in the middle of the night. Here's where we get the scene from the trailers of the elf crouching while putting arrow to bow and shooting, all in slow motion. It was dumb, and the dumbness spreads as most of the rest of this sequence is in slow motion. It's about this time that Mom shows up, revealing where the kid got his retardedness from, as she is charging into an orc arrow storm without even trying to dart from cover to cover behind trees. The slow motion does not help, nor does the music that is attempting to be moving. They make it out of the trees and stop, with orcs on their tail. And then, coincidentally, the sun rises and breaks through some clouds, and they are still standing there, not moving. The orcs come to the tree line and cower away from the sun. The writers are idiots. The three of them, idiot elf and retarded mom and son, are still standing there, staring back at the trees, full of orcs. A good archer would have riddled them with arrows. I know they were trying to go for a stirring moment. I know that. But not even the rousing music made me care, unlike what Peter Jackson and his composer Howard Shore managed in the Lord of the Rings trilogy. Even in The Hobbit, flawed as that trilogy was. This is about where my notes end because I just wanted it to be over and there was another 20 minutes left. We cut to Moria where Disa is singing to the rocks in hopes that the four miners who were caught in the cave-in would be alright. Durin comes in, he's covered in dirt and says they got him all out, and Elrond is thanked by Disa for keeping Durin out of the cave-in. Durin rails against his father for halting digging on the mine, and Elrond makes him understand that he should be grateful for having his father alive to talk to, unlike Elrond. It makes Durin go talk to his father. They both come to an understanding, and they both say they don't really trust the reason Elrond was sent to Moria. Durin decides to take Elrond up on his invitation to come back to Eregion with him. Back at the Elven fort the human refugees are hiding in, Arondir gives his would-be girlfriend the orcs' message that they would be spared if they swear fealty to the orc leader Adar, the elf who rules them like a religious figure. Then the son is shown hiding his sword shard, and the farmer he stole it from talks to him. He shows that he knows the kid used the sword and how, and says that they both need to be ready for when Sauron comes. And finally we come to the most retarded sequence in the entire 4 episodes so far. And that is saying something, especially the Hobbit scenes. Miriel goes to the harbor to see that Galadriel is put on a ship. The elf is rowed out to a ship and Miriel leaves with Pharazôn. As she is leaving the harbor, we get the scene from the trailer where Miriel is walking through an alley and looks up, white petals floating down around her. This changes her mind. She makes a speech to the waiting court later, and the same message is being relayed to her people in the square from earlier in the episode. She is going to war with Galadriel on Middle-earth, and she is asking for volunteers. Elendil and his buddies are the first to volunteer. Many others follow in both the court and in the square. And that was where it blessedly ended. I'm at the point where I would have long ago jumped ship on this show. I'm very curious about what the ratings for this one were, given how bad the first 3 episodes were. Nearly all of the characters are bad. Disa and Durin are easily the best characters, and that is usually only when it is just those two. The chemistry between Sophia Nomvet and Owain Arthur is quite good. The young actress who plays Arian is decent enough in the limited time we see her, and the actor playing her father has also been pretty good. That is the list after 4 episodes and a cast spanning 5 different geographical locations and all of the races of Middle-earth, assuming, of course, Meteor Man was a wizard. I guess the orcs haven't been too bad, but they are a shadow of the characters in Peter Jackson's movie. There have been no characters. They all look right, but they might as well be furniture for all we get out of them thus far. The one saving grace of this episode was that there were no scenes with the psychopaths that they have written in as hobbits. How you take one of the favorite groups of many Tolkien fans and turn them into one of the worst aspects of the show is beyond me, but they have done it with seeming ease. I'm going to wrap this one up before I start ranting. If you like what I do here, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, comment down below, and share the video to help out with the algorithm. And I will be back soon with a new video.